trolling Senator Elizabeth Warren as a snake, and in post after post, labeling Mayor Pete Buttigieg a rat. Two victims of this tell CNN they were so afraid of the online attacks they faced, they don't even want us to describe the circumstances for fear it would start up again. They both just questioned the politics of Bernie Sanders in a public setting, and their personal lives were exposed and attacked.
Well, just what Nick said, I think that's right. I mean, there is no Democratic establishment anymore. There's not even a Democratic Party anymore. The Democratic Party is a meaningless notion. It's a party like the Republican Party has been hollowed out and privatized to a large extent. There are Democratic elites, and so when we're talking about the Democratic establishment, we're really talking about a number of a bunch of people that Nick also knows well, which really means Democratic donors.
This is the most important election in the history of our country.
This election is the most important in the modern history of this country.
The election in 2020, without hyperbole, is going to be the most important election this country has undergone in over 100 years. Not a joke.
This November's elections are more important than any I can remember in my lifetime, and that includes when I was on the ballot.
There are just 8 days left in what is the most important election of our lifetime.
Where did you guys come to a conclusion about why Clinton had such a hard time just owning that she did something wrong with the email server?
You know, I know that Russia and other forces would love us to have a debate. This is exactly what they want. They want us to have a debate about the internal structure of Hillary's campaign, what's true, what's not true. And I'm just not going to play that. I'm sorry.
Yes, we came, we saw, we died.
I was the CIA director. We lied, we cheated, we stole. It's like we had entire training courses. It reminds you of the glory of the American experiment.
You know, people have said, if you look at, for example, the heat that ended up around the bend the knee of Colin Kaepernick. Mm-hmm. Many smart people have said it actually was not a thing. The Russian bots started taking out. Yes.
But I saw my mom. My mom is the strongest woman I know.
She should
this
be
is
running.
Not about.
If you're like me, one of the millions suffering from pain caused by migraine, Nurtec ODT may help. It's the only medication that can treat a migraine when it strikes and prevent migraine attacks.
Trump and the Republicans lose on Tuesday, and if they lose badly, it's not going to be because of the left, whatever that means. It's not because of the 50 Antifa black mask guys who roam around the United States breaking windows and committing mayhem, most of whom are probably paid police informers.
Most of whom are probably paid police informers.
Rudy Giuliani, there's only three things he mentioned in a sentence: a noun and a verb and 9/11. I mean,
I'm going to try to get through this. Thank you for what you did 3 years ago today.
And I went to Wall Street in December of 2007, before the big crash that we had, and I basically said, cut it out.
And now I want to hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. If we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden.
This version of Biden, intellectually, analytically, is the best Biden ever.
He is sharp, intensely probing, and detail-oriented and focused.
They're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country.
I can't do it.
We'll do it live. Okay. We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. And thing sucks.
In 5, 4, 3.
Citizens of the internet, thank you for joining me again today. Saturday looks to be the day that we're going to hit these streams up moving forward, so mark your calendars. It has been a wild couple weeks in politics, and let me just adjust my lighting a bit. And there's so much to talk about that I kind of have to pick and choose. And the way that I'm kind of curating my content, so to speak, is I feel like, with the wars, for example, Ukraine, Gaza, now Venezuela, you have really great channels like the Durin and, Max Blumenthal in the Gray Zone. Even Napolitano has a lot of great guests discussing those wars. So all this stuff is happening, and I feel like my wheelhouse is kind of commentary and weaving different things together. So that's what I'm going to do. I may not have the latest update on the Ukraine war or the Gaza war or anything like that, but I do have a lot of really great clips to show you and a lot of esoteric and kind of, more abstract ideas around the current situation in politics to discuss. Now, if you'll notice, my card says this. My card says defenders of the status quo versus the post-partisan era. And there's a lot of people that call this post-duopoly, same thing. I always used post-partisan because I think it basically means the same thing, but it just sounded snappier to me, I guess. And I think what you're seeing happening right now in American politics is kind of the dissolving of these right and left parties, the Democrat and Republican parties. People are finally coming to the realization that it doesn't matter who you vote for, you get John McCain. A lot of us voted for Obama, change we could believe in, and we got 8 more years of Bush Cheney with, hey, look, it's a black guy, yay, and that's great. It's great that we have a little bit more diversity in our politics. I think we should have more. Obviously, Mamdani winning is a great sign. But did I upload this clip? So I have a bunch of new sound drops for you. And one of them is this.
Yay!
We got a black president.
Yay! Yay!
So anyway, quite a few topics to discuss with you today, but this first one is one that I think went under the radar with a lot of people, and maybe I just didn't see the coverage of it. But Jon Stewart recently did I guess it's an interview with the New Yorker, and in this interview, he discusses the current state of politics, Joe Rogan, and the new right, whatever you want to call it, which I don't think Joe Rogan's right, even though he kind of codes as such because he hunts and all that and likes fighting. Politically, if you listen to him talk, he's not right wing at all. But this was a great little piece of video because it is Jon Stewart just being authentic. And I think one of the reasons that Jon Stewart is still a thing is because of this. And, he might not always get it right. I used to love The Daily Show and slowly over the years have fallen away from it because it became another one of those shitlib outposts, like a lot of these shows. But I always feel like Jon Stewart has been an honest commentator. And a good example of that is when he went on Stephen Colbert during the COVID thing and kind of, did that bit where Colbert, I'm sure you've seen it, tried to shut him down. I didn't pull the clip, but listen to this. This is Jon Stewart being grilled by the New Yorker about Joe Rogan, and his answers are actually really
a couple of times.
Yes.
What did you think of that experience being on Joe Rogan?
I enjoyed being on Rogan. I think he's an interesting interviewer. There are right-wing weaponized commentators whose sole purpose is to manipulate things to the benefit of the Bannon Project or the Project 2025. Rogan's not that guy.
What is that guy? How would you
That
describe
guy
him?
is a curious comic who fell into this thing that got fucking enormous, maybe doesn't, has opinions all over the political spectrum, but has tendencies that people on the left does not fit the aesthetic. He's a hunter.
Exactly. It's easy for them to try and smear him as a right winger, to try and get liberals not to pay attention to him and discredit him, because he codes, like I said, as a right winger, even though when you listen to the substance of the shit that he says, he's definitely not a right winger.
In fairness, he's had people on who are kind of Nazi curious. That's not good.
I've interviewed Kissinger.
So that's the new thing. I've interviewed Kissinger. Of course. That's what they're doing with Nick Fuentes. And to me, that almost speaks to, everyone's an op these days, but with Nick Fuentes, it almost feels like they put him out there to say some sensible stuff, but also be racist and be anti-Jewish and be anti-Semitic. And so that way, if you agree with any of the stuff that he says that has legitimacy, all of a sudden you're running with the anti-Semite crowd. And this is what they have done to the America First people for years.
And he was carpet bomb curious. I don't know what to say. It's very easy to castigate those where we're but he had an opinion a few years back that's, corrosive.
But the difference is, when he was carpet bomb curious, you didn't say, oh yeah, that's awesome. And what happens with Rogan sometimes is he'll hear somebody that's on the dangerous end of the spectrum, and he'll just kind of soak it in.
And I think this is a great point. And it's whoever job who thinks that information is dangerous, to fight to get their point of view out there, to counter what they think is misinformation. You can't just deputize people to say he should have known better and he should have prosecuted that point.
But the reality is, John, is that it might be my job or the New York Times job or even your job, but I don't have the audience that Joe Rogan does.
Then get it.
Yeah, well, get it.
Then get it. Such a fantastic point, because that's how these people try to discredit anyone who's speaking the truth. They do it to Max Blumenthal. He works for Iran. They did it to Jimmy Dore. They're doing it to Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson now. Oh, he's Nazi curious. Who buys that? I'll tell you who buys that. These people.
Ain't got America for you and me.
Then go on that show. Then do those things. It's not acceptable to just say, well, I don't like what he does. Then do it better, beat them at their own game. It's not enough to just complain that guy got a platform, and don't platform that guy. There's no one in this world right now that isn't platformed. And my biggest frustration, honestly, with a lot of scientists is they all go, RFK, oh, he's so fucked up. That's terrible information. Oh, okay. What's the information? Nothing. Where are they? Get out there.
Yeah, because their information is bullshit. So all they can do is demonize people that are saying something against the status quo, because they're defending the status quo. That's the biggest thing. And I noticed this with both parties. Now that Trump's in, what's he doing? Defending the status quo. He was elected to change the status quo, to be an opposition to the status quo. But he's so infiltrated now, he's Donald J. Biden.
Fight.
I got in trouble. I was given an interview to a German magazine. I said I would interview Hitler. And I thought that was kind of non-controversial. Is there anybody that you wouldn't interview?
It depends on what the expectation is also for the interview. Because remember, a lot of what we're doing right now is we're falling into that trap that a good interview will solve the problem. I've been on the side of the good interview. I interviewed Donald Rumsfeld. I lost more sleep over that interview than he did over the entire fucking war. And you know what he did afterwards? He wrote me a note saying that was fun.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea how that still hurts? He wrote, that was fun. I bet if we had known each other when we were younger, we would have been friends.
Oh, John, what did you think of the recent, the business of comedians going to Riyadh and being paid a lot of money? What did you think of that?
I don't touch other people's money. And, it's hard, man. I want to fix my house. I want to operate with integrity, but I don't want to gatekeep. Like I don't go to the tree of hilarity and get visited by the fathers of, and I think a lot of comics who came out and really shit on those guys, like I know a couple of them and I know them actually to be like garbage humans. So
he's talking about Mark Maron right there, just so you know. There's a whole story that I won't get into right now, but quick sidebar. Back in the day, Jon Stewart got a show, and I think they talked about this on Rogan, but Jon Stewart got this show and Mark Maron came out and called him a sellout and a poser and called him all these names. Then Jon Stewart left that show, and guess who took his spot on that show? Mark Maron. So that's who Jon Stewart's talking about when he's saying a lot of the people criticizing are garbage people.
would have preferred if they would have just come out though and said it's money and not like, it's a way to start a conversation. Like, would you have started the conversation for $2,500? Well, then that's the difference. Look, I worked for Apple. Like, there's a lot of people who believe that Apple is exploitative in a way that's horrific. We all have our lines that we are willing to cross. Like, we get into a problem when we're unforgiving in any way. We offer no grace. And that doesn't mean that I don't have lines that I draw that if people cross it, I won't do. But I do try to not be so rigid in the way that I think society has become. And if it goes back to that point,
do you know where the lines are ahead of time?
No.
Because, I mean, as we started the conversation, you're facing a complicated situation at Paramount.
Sure.
And you know what you won't do, but if you see something else happening in the company, do you know where those lines are? Like with the news.
Yeah. They've already done things that I'm upset about. But then if I had integrity, maybe I would stand up and go, I'm out. Or maybe this integrity thing to do would be to stay in it and keep fighting. In the foxhole, like, I love a good argument. I love differing points of view in all facets of things. But I also love grace. I've got people in my family that are to the right of Attila the Hun. And when people tell me, like, how can you platform that person on your show? I go, I platform my uncle every fucking Thanksgiving. And by the way, I love him. He's a three-dimensional human being who has qualities that I really admire, things about him. And we've lost that. We've lost the ability to love people because we litmus test at every point, in every single moment.
Jon, you've always struck me as
Well, I just want to say that's fucking beautiful. And props to Unique Entertainment here for showcasing this clip. That's who I got it from. But I want to go down the memory hole real quick with you, because Jon Stewart sounds a lot like another political commentator right now. Remember this? This is from
on your show, and you sniff his throne, and you're accusing us of partisan hackery?
Absolutely.
You've got to be kidding me.
You're on CNN. The show that leads into me is puppets making crank phone calls. What is wrong with you?
Well, I'm just saying, there's no reason for you, when you have this marvelous opportunity not to be the guy's butt boy, to go ahead and be his butt boy.
Yes,
It's embarrassing.
I was absolutely his butt boy. I was so far. You would not believe what he ate 2 weeks ago. The interesting thing that I have is you have a responsibility to the public discourse, and you fail miserably.
I think
you need to go to one. The thing that I want to say is, when you have people on for just knee-jerk reactionary talk.
Wait, I thought you were going to be funny. Come on, be funny.
No, I'm not going to be your monkey. Go ahead. I watch your show every day, and it kills me.
I can tell you love it.
It's so painful to watch. Because we need what you do. This is such a great opportunity you have here to actually get politicians off of their marketing and strategy. Yeah, it's someone who watches your show and cannot take it anymore. I just can't.
What's it like to have dinner with you? It must be excruciating. Do you lecture people like this? Or do you come over to their house and sit and lecture them? And, they're not doing the right thing, that they're missing their opportunities, evading their responsibilities?
If I think they are.
Look, I wouldn't want to eat with you, man. That's horrible.
I know, and you won't. But the thing I want to get to...
Yeah, we did. Let's get to those.
Why can't we just talk? Please, I beg of you guys.
I think you watch too much Crossfire. We're going to take a quick break.
No.
Look, hold on.
Please.
We've got commercials.
Please.
Next,
please stop.
In the rapid.
So what's interesting is if you listen to Tucker talk this is from 20 plus years ago, early 2000, I think 2003, I'm guessing. It's obvious that he's matured a lot. And you heard it here first. The next big podcast is Jon Stewart and Tucker Carlson. Jon Stewart and Tucker Carlson making up. And I'm going to show you why. Tucker Carlson is on this trip too, but before we do that, I want to show you this quick ad break.
Fire!
Please,
hopefully
stop.
He'll be here. We hope, we think. And then, if U.S. soldiers refuse an order in Iraq, Will Spitzer has the latest on this investigation right after the break.
I'm Wolf Blitzer in Washington. Coming up at the top of the hour, the Pentagon investigates a report that U.S. soldiers refused to go on a dangerous mission in Iraq. We'll have details. In medical news, the FDA prescribes a strongly worded label on antidepressant drugs. And why some experts think the flu vaccine shortage is a grim warning about U.S. vulnerability to bioterrorism.
So there you go. They were going at the vaccine thing even back in these days. But the trajectory, it seems like the trajectory that Tucker and Jon are both on is similar. And we're going to keep going here with a recent apology that Tucker issued to Liz Cheney. And I think this is so great. And just listen
the
to
Jews, and by this I mean eliminate them. You think your puny little asses are going to be able to do it?
Kill the Jews? Your first thought is, wait a second, how do we get to that? No, just don't want a regime change war against Russia. By the way, a war in which Jews would die, presumably, both in the U.S. military and the IDF. Like, no, don't want to kill anybody. Actually, that's kind of the point. You want to kill the Jews? So the first thing you notice is like the total inversion of what the argument actually is. It's an argument about to what extent should U.S. military power be used on behalf of another country, not the United States. That's it. That's the debate. And all of a sudden it becomes the Babylonians, the Nazis trying to kill the Jews. So again, it's an inversion. He's accusing his opponents.
Come on, Tucker. You're an anti-Semite.
Christmas, give the gift of sleep with sleep.
You think you're puny little...
While Tucker's ad break is going, he basically introduces this by talking about the Ben Shapiros and the Mark Levins who are coming after him right now because they are defenders of the status quo. Nothing can change because we like things the way they are, and you're a Nazi if you want to have a dialogue about this or examine anything or change any of the current dynamics of the status quo. And again, Trump was elected to be an upset to the status quo. And as we've seen, he's not doing a very good job. But here's the rest of Tucker's rant here. And again, this is really good. So it's in response to Mark Levin. And
you're members of the Third Reich. You're Nazis. You're evil. You're an Islamist. You hate Jews. You're an anti-Semite. You hate America. Okay. That's ad hominem.
You're an anti-Semite.
It's the argument that anyone Mark Levin doesn't agree with is making, instead of just attacking them as people. And the third thing you notice is what animates this, which is hate. Mark Levin is filled with hate, obviously. And hate is one of those words that is thrown around a lot as a weapon. You're filled with hate. That's hate. It's hate speech. Therefore, you can't say it, etc. But that doesn't mean just because the word itself is used cynically that the term doesn't describe anything or that hate isn't real. Hate is absolutely real. Hate is absolutely real. And if you listen to enough Mark Levin, you yourself can become hateful. Reacting against it can turn you into what he claims you are. And that's just a fact of human nature. You stick your face right up against this. After a while, you will become hateful. All of us, even people who are committed to not being. It happened to me last week, a week ago tonight. I'm sitting on stage with Megyn Kelly at an event she was doing in New York. And I think Dick Cheney had died that day. And I knew Dick Cheney, obviously, and he had died. And I disagree with Dick Cheney, but I'm not going to criticize a man on the day he dies. I'm just not going to do that because I have reverence for death. But I had a lot of emotion on the topic. And so I said a few nice words about Dick Cheney. He was a great flycaster or whatever. And then I started thinking about his daughter, Liz Cheney, whom I also know and have disliked intensely for quite some time because she slandered me and because I think she is a violence espouser, and I disagree with that, and I have contempt for it. But rather than say that, I just attacked in a vicious way Liz Cheney. And I said something awful about Liz Cheney, actually. Didn't explain why I was mad at Liz Cheney. I just slandered Liz Cheney, basically. And I said that her father would be ashamed of her, and if I had a daughter like that, I'd probably kill myself, which is an awful thing to say. It's kind of hard to believe I said that. But in my mind, I was thinking of all the people I dislike, Liz Cheney would probably be at the top of the list. And so therefore, because I dislike her personally, because I know her personally, and because I so disagree with everything about her political views, I'm the opposite of Liz Cheney. If you were to graph it out, I'd be on one side, Liz Cheney on the other. Because
he wasn't always this way, as we just saw with that Crossfire clip back when he was bow tie wearing Iraq war supporter. So you have to give the man credit for coming around to being a sensible guy, especially with, you see the backlash he's getting for speaking from his heart, for being honest about the state of the country and the things that he sees are wrong with it. And we're going to get deeper into this in a few minutes, but let me let him.
Because we disagree so profoundly I told myself, clearly, I must have told myself.
I'm really happy for you. I'll let you finish.
She's not really human. You can say anything you want, including something really awful and nasty, like if I was her dad, I would kill myself. Who thinks like that? Who talks like that? Well, I did. And so I just want to say I'm sorry to Liz Cheney, and I mean that too. I mean that. I shouldn't have said that. I'm sorry I said that. I will not stop disagreeing with Liz Cheney until she changes her views. I hope that she does. But there is never an excuse to talk about people like that. And that kind of is the trap here. Mark Levin is almost 70 years old. No one's going to eat the dog food here, okay? That is not a message anyone's going to buy. So the fear is not that
no one's going to eat the dog food here. That is a direct shot at Laura Loomer.
Mark Levin will take over American politics. That's not going to happen. The fear is that we become Mark Levin. By staring at Mark Levin too much, we become him. Another way of putting it is the fight is not against Mark Levin and the many Mark Levins out there, the screamers, the slanderers, the impugners of character, the liars. The real fight is within ourselves. The real fight is against our own nature, our own natural inclination to, in the face of Mark Levin, become Mark Levin. And the cost is to us. You hurt yourself. Don't become evil. Because what's the point? What is the point? And the only way to prevent yourself from becoming that person is by admitting that you've acted like that person and apologizing for it sincerely, not in a fake way. Oh, I'm sorry if you didn't like it. No, I'm sorry, because that's wrong. And it's exactly what I don't like about someone else. And I don't like it about myself when I do it. I'm going to try not to do it again. And of course I will do it. Probably by the end of the show, I'll do it again because I'm prone to that, because I get mad. But we need to say every single time we do that, no, I'm sorry I did that. And I'll try my best not to do it again. So really, just to keep in mind, as things heat up, don't become the people you despise, or else what's the point?
Yep. And that's kind of the dynamic that's going on in the Middle East right now. The people who survived, or who survived a Holocaust are now committing one, and so it's, I love that Tucker, even if I disagreed with every political view Tucker held, I would have to respect him for that, for having the balls to admit when he's wrong and humble himself. Because, it's funny, in the interview he did with Anna Kasparian, which we're going to talk about now, she says something about how if it ruins her credibility to say she was wrong, then so be it. And it's like, no, actually, it improves your credibility. It makes you more authentic. It makes you seem honest. Joe Rogan does it all the time, which is CNN never does it. MSNBC never does it. NBC News never does it. And that's why these podcasters like Tucker Carlson and Theo Vaughn or Joe Rogan or any of these people that have, political dialogues on their shows have a lot more currency with the public than, say, CNN or the New York Times, because when they're wrong, they'll come out and admit it and be honest with their audience about it. The New York Times doesn't do that unless they're like bald-faced caught in a lie, like they were with that caliphate story a couple years ago that they wrote, like a Muslim scare piece. Because as we all know, the New York Times and most American media is run by a certain lobby that wants us to be at constant war with Muslims or whoever, Venezuela, and pick your enemy. So let's continue down this path here with Anna Kasparian's apology to Aaron Mate. And I think Tucker Carlson really set the stage for this.
Was it 5 years ago? Anna Kasparian of the Young Turks gave you the finger on air, really lost it, and accused you of being a Russian asset because of your views on Syria. I'm not going to play that clip. Haven't really had time to search for it. But the clip of her apologizing or her tweet has really gone viral and been received pretty well. We might as well get that on screen. This is something you don't see a lot in media these days, where somebody smears you in the past and then they actually come around and apologize for what they said.
And you want to zoom in so we can see it.
5 years ago, I accused Aaron Mate of unfounded claims that he was being paid by Russia.
It was unfounded because it was a lie.
She also didn't accuse you of unfounded claims. She accused you of being paid by Russia.
Exactly.
While I stupidly and sincerely believed it at the time, no evidence has materialized to prove it. So
because it was a lie. Yes.
So, that's good. So, the 5-year window of having evidence materialize has expired. I'm embarrassed by it, and I owe him, along with his readers, a long overdue apology. So, Aaron, you responded and said, hey, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate all the speaking out you've done for Palestine. I, in turn, am sorry for any ad hominem comments I made in response back then. Not how I want to conduct myself. Very gracious response by you, albeit a little on the Canadian side. And, and you know, everybody's, it's all over there. But I think there's a lot more to say about this. And Anna explained her apology in interview with Tucker Carlson. I'll play that on like accelerated speed. Again, this is something you don't see very often in US media, where somebody smears somebody and then they actually acknowledge they were wrong. If that happened, I would be fielding these apologies.
Maybe your full-time job. You'd have to like.
There'd be like a line of people at my funeral just like lining up to give like eulogies to me, but about how right I was. But anyway.
The only way to stop that is by controlling our own behavior and by being honest about it. And as I was thinking about this, I saw that you apologized to someone publicly for something that you had said about him. And I just, it was weird that we were having the same thoughts at the same time. But can you explain that?
Sure. So about 5 years ago.
I forgot they fucked up here.
Aaron Mate, who is a journalist and is actually doing a lot of really great work, especially in his coverage of what's happening in Gaza, had reported some things that I disagreed with in regard to what was happening in Syria, right? So he didn't deny that Bashar al-Assad had in some instances used chemical weapons, but there was one particular instance that he was denying, and I disagreed with him on that. Who's right, who's wrong, that doesn't even matter at this point. I don't even know why I allowed that one minor disagreement to basically whip me up into this crazy frenzy. And this
been there, baby.
Right? Yes. Where all of a sudden I'm like, no, Aaron Mate.
Yeah, wait, who's right, who's wrong does actually matter at this point, because you were wrong, Anna.
Definitely, he's getting funded by the Russians. Definitely funded by the Russians. And so on TYT one day, Cenk and I were discussing Syria, and I just blurted that out. And, you know, I was in a different headspace at that.
No.
Russia
did it.
Circumstantial things that I would point to, but really nothing solid to prove that Aaron Mate is funded by the Russians. And so over the last year in particular, I just kept seeing his posts on X. I actually was on a panel with him on Piers Morgan's show, and he and I were very much on the same page in regard to the topic we were discussing. And every single time he would come up in my mind, I've just felt really bad about myself because I smeared him and I never apologized, and that's not okay. And so I came across another one of his posts today that I liked on X, and I was like, you know what? Now is the time. It's been 5 years. It's embarrassing that it's been 5 years. Now is the time for me to practice what I preach, to lead by example and apologize to him unequivocally. And I was met with grace. He was very, very kind, and he accepted my apology, and I'm very grateful for that. But there's another point I want to just quickly make about this. If you are in the media, understand, like, we are all flawed, and you're right, Tucker, we all do change, some for the better, some for the worse. It is okay to admit when you're wrong. It is okay to apologize. It doesn't make you, I don't know, a less credible person if you admit you were wrong. And so just something to keep in mind, if you happen to be in the media and you've made a mistake, or you've accidentally smeared someone, or you intentionally smeared someone and then realized it was wrong, just apologize and move on.
Okay, so Aaron, what's your reaction to that?
Well, like I said on Twitter, I appreciate the apology. I do, and it sounds sincere. And I'm glad she cleared that up. Now, I do have to make a factual correction. I do actually deny all the allegations against Assad of chemical. I do. If you look at all the major cases, there's been 3. Guta 2013, Khan Sheikhoun 2017, Duma 2018. Duma is the one with the OPCW whistleblowers. All of them, I don't think Assad did it. I think the evidence is overwhelming that these were false flags, and these were deceptions pushed by the Western intelligence community. I just think that's absolutely overwhelming, and there's so much evidence to support that, which, you know, we've talked about extensively, and I've written a lot about. In fact, the Gray Zone recently had an article about Samantha Power receiving intelligence coming from the Israelis, them really pushing this, which speaks to the forces that were behind all these allegations. So
great piece by Wyatt Reed.
Yeah. So anyway, look, just as a factual matter, it's not just Duma that I was talking about. Although Duma was where I really got involved, because that's a story with the OPCW leaks where whistleblowers challenged the cover up of their own investigation. But anyway, so that's just a factual matter. And I have to point out, she talks there about some circumstantial things. Like, I don't know what she's referring to, but again, like, you know, circumstantial can mean something tangible or something baseless. So who knows? It's an ambiguous word. But I mean, look, it's true. I did speak at the UN a few times at the invitation of Russia. That's what you can point to if you want to tie me to Russia. I spoke at the UN Security Council.
She's going, you know, she went further than that, and it was not like, oh, you know, whatever. He was, you know, his colleague worked for RT or something like that. It was that you were like actually someone who should have been criminally investigated, and they were doing that at the time, and whatever. Now it's all been cleared up. I think there's some larger points to make here.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think that's, like the individual apology isn't as important as I think like the broader lessons. And that is like, why was it so difficult to be on the left and in independent media and challenge the CIA? And why when we would do that
during the first Trump term?
Yeah, and why would we do that when we didn't go along with Russiagate, when we challenged the Syria dirty war, were we, vilified by some people? And I just think, to me, that speaks to the power of our propaganda system. It enlists people, whether they realize it or not, in buying into narratives that are just wrong, and leads people and incentivizes people to vilify those who are challenging their narratives. And that's a problem on the left. It just is. I mean, the Young Turks are not alone in smearing us and in parroting CIA propaganda. That's a widespread problem.
So Aaron asked a very good question there about why people are so easily tricked. And that's going to lead us into our next piece of tape here of Bill Maher, out of touch Hollywood guy. But before we get to that, I just want to wrap this up by saying, as much as I appreciate Anna's apology, I don't fully buy it until this happens. And this is Jack's page laying it out. I guess it's good that she realized she was wrong about this and she's on the right side of Palestine, but I don't trust Anna and never will again. She owes Jimmy Dore and Steph Zamorano apologies for the news skirt false accusations, not that she deserves to be forgiven for that. So Max and Aaron did get into this during the course of their broadcast, and I didn't catch it all, but they basically said the same thing. They said that, in addition to Aaron, and Anna attacked Aaron really because he was defending Jimmy, but she tried to Me Too smear him and basically ruin his reputation. And it was a pretty brutal attack. So until her and Cenk apologized for that, they're still on notice in my book. I'm not jumping back into the Young Turks universe now because Anna apologized to Aaron. She needs to sack up and apologize to Jimmy as well and explain why she tried to sexually accuse him of sexual assault. That's a low thing to do to someone, especially someone like Jimmy, who's clearly, an honest actor and was not guilty of that kind of thing. When you listen to his, and then Kyle Kalinske and Crystal Ball came out and attacked Jimmy too. Fuck those people. So anyway, moving on to our next segment, Boomer Time with Out of Touch Hollywood Guy. I've been catching Bill Maher's show for free lately because it's on it'll pop up on YouTube. So I happened to watch it last night, and it's the guests were Fareed Zakaria and the Kyle Kalinske dude from New York Times. Literally, the guy, if you watch the episode, his name is Josh Barrow, I think. He literally looks and sounds like Kyle Kalinske. He's like a Kyle Kalinske part 2, and he's a total hack, a total partisan scumbag. But I really want to break down Bill Maher's New Rules segment here, because these people just still don't fucking get it. They still live in this world where the Democrats need to keep moving to the right. So let's get into this. This is absolutely, I was going to say disgusting, but it's really just pathetic.
Zoran Mamdani is the future of the party. Unfortunately, it's the Republican Party.
Unfortunately, it's the Republican Party. I'll hit the laugh track there since Bill Maher doesn't get a laugh for that. Now there you go.
And if you missed his victory speech in last week's mayoral election in New York, don't worry. You'll see it in every attack ad for the next 2 years. Now, Mamdani seems like a nice guy, and I congratulate him on an extraordinary political achievement. But before the whole left side of the country catches socialism fever, let's listen to the other big winner in last Tuesday's election, Virginia Governor-elect Abigail Spanberger, who, before the 24 election, said things like, if the party didn't shift to the center, we will get fucking torn apart. And we need to never use the word socialist or socialism ever again. Well, she was right, but they didn't listen. Typical, am I right, ladies?
So these guys still think, people like Bill Maher are so insulated and so fucking out of touch that they still think that the reason Trump won in the last election cycle is because the Democrats weren't to the center enough. This is after Kamala campaigned with Liz Cheney and had, all these billionaire scumbags like Mark Cuban and JB Pritzker on her side. She took more money from billionaires than Trump did. And these guys still believe that they need to run to the center. The center is the right at this point. The Democrats are so far to the center, they're on the right, Bill. So you're basically arguing that they go further right. And the other part of this, and I want to pull this up. I haven't really looked at this. But Abigail Spanberger, to my understanding, is a CIA agent. And going into why propaganda is so effective, I think this is one of the reasons. Let's look at this real quick. Let's just look at her. This is the woman that Bill Maher is citing as the new face of the Democratic Party. No, if people like this are your new candidates, you will get shellacked in the next. Mamdani won despite all the fucking terrorism, the mental terrorism they put out about him. Oh, he's going to ruin New York. I mean, they did the same shit to Obama, who was like mildly to the left for a minute, but until he got elected. So let's look at this. Abigail Spanberger, early life and education. Her family, so her father's a police officer, her mother's a nurse. That's a good blue collar career. In early 2000s, Spanberger began English literature. Here we go. As a substitute teacher at the Islamic Saudi Academy in North Virginia, she received a conditional job offer from the CIA in December 2002 while waiting for a background check to be completed. Spanberger worked as a postal inspector, as her father did, focusing on money laundering and narcotics cases. In June 2006, Spanberger's background check had been completed. She joined the CIA as a case officer, working to find, recruit, and build relationships with foreign nationals who could have had information of value to the U.S. government. So that's the new face. In 2014, Spanberger left the CIA and entered the private sector. She was hired by Royal & Company, now a part of EAB, to do consulting work. In the aftermath of the 2016 presidential election, she began working with Emerge America to encourage. So this woman is a product of the intelligence community. And Bill Maher is, of course, touting her as the future of the Democratic Party, hanging on her every word.
At least the party has a clear choice here.
Yay!
Very clear. One wing is saying, don't ever use the word socialist again, and one is saying,
I am a democratic socialist.
Clear, huh? So how do we decide?
Yeah, and that guy won, Bill, despite all the CIA propaganda that you're spouting.
Who's right? Well, it turns out we don't really have to flip a coin. We have the evidence. In 2024, 13 Democrats won. In districts, Trump also won. All moderates. This isn't rocket science. All the left-leaning think tanks have done autopsies on 2024.
All the left-leaning think tanks have done autopsies on 24. It's funny how the left-leaning think tanks didn't do autopsies on, the primaries being stolen from Bernie Sanders. And the Democrats never self-reflect. And when they do, this is the answer they always get. Oh, we need to go further right. We're not far right enough. We need to go further right. Further right, further right, further right. So now you don't have a choice. Now you have a choice between a right-wing candidate and a right-wing candidate. And that's why people like Mamdani win despite the CIA propaganda horseshit that you guzzle down like it's, a Whole Foods smoothie, Bill.
And they all came up with the same message. Move to the center. Even the New York Times,
move to the
which
center.
did so much.
The Democratic Party is center-right. Moving more to the right is going to move them to the far right. I mean, they all support, most of the Democrats support war with Venezuela and continuing dropping money into Ukraine, a corrupt ass country that's being beaten handily by Russia right now.
To promote woke politics now says the partisans are wrong. Moving to the center is the way to win. And Democrats should recognize the party moved too far left on social issues after Obama left office. Gosh, if only someone had been saying that all along.
Yeah, it's the same thing. These are the same things that you were saying when you lost to Trump. You're getting the wrong message. And I have to wonder, is it intentional? Mr. Maher, who has dinner with Benjamin Netanyahu?
But
The audience is like,
But, you know, welcome home. Problem is, Gen Z thinks socialism's wired and capitalism's tired and billionaires are what's for dinner.
yeah, because Bill Maher has never had to suffer. Like, this guy lives in an insulated Hollywood mansion. He's never had to, like, well, I mean, not in years, maybe in the 70s when he was a struggling actor, he used to have to experience what it's like to be a working class person. But now he's just, you know, a propagandized CIA bitch.
Who can blame them? If you're 30 and still sharing a bathroom with roommates, capitalism isn't working for you. People will reject any economic system.
So, as he usually does in these pieces, he does touch on some things that are true, and we're going to discuss those too. This is one of them. Why would people vote for an Abigail Spanberg? And the thing about Mamdani is, even if you really believe all the shit they say about him, that he's a pro-Islamist and a communist and anti-capitalism or whatever, even if you believe all that, the idea that he'll be able to implement, you know, his entire agenda from front to back is, you know, retarded at best. But second of all, it's like the defund the police thing. People who are arguing defund the police, no one thinks that's actually going to happen. No one thinks that you're going to actually completely defund the police. However, you have to start the argument from a place that extreme to win anything. And you see how scared the establishment forces get when you say defund the police. Like, oh, fuck, you're a commie. Oh my God, oh, I can't believe you said that. Oh, it's like, yeah, because now you have to deal with me. Now we can meet in the middle and actually have some change to some extent. And it's the same thing with someone like Mamdani. You know, I'm sure that a lot of the people that voted for him don't want the entire state to have government-run grocery stores. And that's the kind of hysteria that these people take and run with. Okay, he said he'd have a government-run grocery store. One. That he didn't say, I'm going to close all the other grocery stores and there's going to be nothing but government. But these people are such drama queens and hysterical idiots that they'll take a little thing like that and blow it out of proportion to scare people, because that's all they have. They can't have an honest debate on what a government-run grocery store might do to the economics, how it might actually force other stores to charge reasonable prices and pay employees reasonable wages. No one wants to talk about that. It's the same dynamic that would happen if there was a public option in healthcare, where now these big, massive companies have an option that they have to compete with that isn't paying ridiculous executives, you know, salaries in between the patient and the source of funding. So anyway, I'm getting off track, but let me let Bill finish here with
hair on the soap. No one wants to be approaching middle age and still writing their name on food before they put it in the fridge. So they're quiet quitting capitalism and texting socialism that they're down to fight. Socialism will fuck you, because socialism, to put it simply, just doesn't work and has never worked, like Kevin Federline. I know the kids think.
I love these jokes too. Like, most of the modern youth have no idea who Kevin Federline is, but also, this is what's great about this. He says socialism doesn't work, and then he's about to pull up examples of socialism that actually work. Watch this.
I think that stuff that happened before their appearance on the planet didn't really happen, but it did. We've run this experiment many times, and the results are always obvious. Here's capitalist South Korea at night from space. Here's socialist North Korea.
Okay, so I don't know if this is the best example, because I don't know why North Korea shuts their lights off at night. Maybe maybe they're at a more rural place. Maybe their lights aren't as bright. Maybe they're not the center of capitalist, you know, business hub. But also, he uses this example and ignores Sweden and Denmark and the UK and Canada and all these countries that have very well-crafted examples of a social safety net. No one is arguing that we need to destroy capitalism completely and implement a Chinese-style communist democracy, or, you know, communist-style government. No one is arguing that at all. But the slightest little pushback against the fucking dick pig oligarchs who fucking just suck up everything and shit it out into the rest of the world. Literally just, they're like hungry hippos extracting shit from America and then pooping it into fucking bank accounts, foreign bank accounts where they don't have to pay taxes. They're literally extracting shit out of the country. He doesn't want to talk about that. He just wants to talk about the dangers of socialism. Most examples of socialist governments too, like Venice, the ones he's going to pull up right now, are ones that the U.S. fucking meddled with and made sure that their governments didn't work. Sanctions, all kinds of shit.
In 1990, Venezuela was wealthier than Poland. But then Poland, finally free of Soviet-style economics, went all in on capitalism. And now their economy is as big as Japan. And people there have high wages, low inflation, cars, vacations, homes. Meanwhile, Venezuela traded capitalism for Hugo Chavez's socialism for the 21st century, which turned out to be like socialism in the last century, or any century, a fucking mess.
So I just want to take a quick sidebar here. Why was Hugo Chavez's administration such a disaster? Let's take a look here. This is from Google AI. The U.S. did not impose sanctions on Hugo Chavez directly, but sanctions were imposed during his presidency on Venezuelan officials and individuals associated with his government. These actions began in the mid-2000s and were often based on concerns about drug trafficking, anti-terrorism efforts, and later human rights violations. Administration targeted the Trump administration significantly expanded the sanctions targeting individuals and entities in Chavez's successor's government. So there you go. We make sure that these governments don't work. But unfortunately for us, that dynamic is changing. We're losing power in the world, and we're not going to be able to do this anymore. But let Bill finish.
I'm really happy for you. I'll let you finish.
The richest countries into one of its poorest. Low wages, high inflation, shortages, outages, 8 million people fleeing. If you think New York can somehow reinvent this wheel, you're in for a rude awakening. Zoran can't make your wishes come true. You're thinking of Zoltar. Democratic socialism is like a dating profile. Things look great until you meet up in the real world. For example, Bernie Sanders, his big thing was always bringing single-payer health care to our country of 340 million. But when liberal, tie-dyed Vermont tried to do it for a population of 626,000, it collapsed like that poor fuck in the Oval Office last week. Bernie, AOC, Mamdani are not Democrats. They'll be the first to tell you that. They're democratic socialists, and that's a very different thing, and I don't think people know that yet. I don't think people realize we already have a lot of socialism. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, unemployment insurance, food stamps, veterans benefits, Pell Grants, COVID-era payments, farm subsidies, disability payments, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, corporate bailouts, and the jobs program that is building weapons the Pentagon doesn't even want.
Okay, so this is actually pretty solid right here. But he leaves out things like public schools, roads, police departments. But I do like that he put military industrial complex in here. So, okay, what are you so scared of then? This is examples of socialism we already have. And the funniest part about this is we never somehow seem to have enough money to pay for this stuff, but we always have plenty of money to dump into wars in Gaza or wars in Ukraine or threaten Venezuela because we want their oil. And these Democrats don't understand that they're the reason. People like Bill Maher are the reason the Democrats are not in power.
All that is socialism, much of it appropriate to soften the edges of capitalism. But the DSA are radicals about this concept. And radical economic policy is always ineluctably married to radical social policy.
Okay, so this is the part where I think Bill is actually correct on some things. And this is the thing that the left needs to fucking check itself about. Because these people are assets. And if they're not, they need to be fucking brushed aside as complete clowns. The complete clowns that they are. Because this is the stuff that actually scares people who might vote for a Mamdani, despite the other propaganda around him. And this is, I pretty much agree with a lot of what he has to say in this part of his
platform,
rant.
for example, calls for completely open borders. They're for what Biden was doing, but more. You think you're going to win an election on that? This just seems like more extremism at a time when Americans are begging both parties, please, could just one of you act normal?
Act normal, aka do what the CIA wants you to do. But the open borders thing, that's one issue that most rational thinking people are not okay with. One of my friends said something about, it was like, oh, I don't believe in borders. And I was like, so if the homeless guy just came and started sleeping on your lawn, you'd be fine with that because you don't believe in borders? His tune changed, obviously. And when you look at the things that are going on in the country right now, we're going to get into H1B visas in a minute, because that's a thing that affected my life personally, and probably a lot of your lives personally. But this type of stuff, this anti-worker stuff that's dressed up as, oh, you're a racist if you disagree with this, is where the Democrats and the DSA type people lose a huge swath of potential, takers, because they're not down with just like having an open border and letting anyone come in who wants. And rightfully so. Look around you, go into any major city and look around you and ask yourself if an unlimited flow of immigration is a good thing to have. Does any other country do that? Does any other country just allow people to willy-nilly come in and, like, by the thousands and get jobs and homes and stuff like that? Like, Tim Dillon did a piece this morning about how 40% of the property in New York is owned by foreign nationals and LLCs and like shady LLCs to launder money through. 40%. That's why real estate's so expensive in New York.
It's either defund the police or military in the streets. Either MAGA's crypto crony capitalism or city-run grocery stores. No, I don't want that. I want a Democrat who reassures me if you like your Whole Foods, you can keep your Whole Foods.
And the audience is so fucking stupid. The audience is,
yay! Yay!
I like Whole Foods, yay! Okay, no one's trying to take away your Whole Foods, Bill. The fact that another grocery store exists that might be a government-funded thing so that poorer people can afford decent food is not going to mean that Whole Foods is going away. What it is probably going to mean is that Whole Foods is going to have to compete with that and charge lower prices.
Governor-elect.
These people are such drama queens. They act like the smallest little upset to the status quo is the end of the universe, and it's an affront to everything that they stand for. And the idea that this guy is going to, remove all the grocery stores from New York because he suggested a grocery store, a government-run grocery store, is just it's ridiculous. I got lost here. He's talking about Whole Foods. Oh, God, it's her again.
And the jobs program that is building weapons is always ineluctably married to radical. Seems like more extremism at a time when America assures me if you like your Whole Foods, you can keep your Whole Foods. Governor.
For those of you that don't know, that's a joke about when Obama said, if you like your healthcare plan, you can keep your healthcare plan.
Lex Vanberger once said about Biden's presidency that, quote, nobody elected him to be FDR. They elected him to be normal. Normal. You know, at this year's DSA convention, or as it's commonly known, Comic-Con.
Hey, thanks, CIA lady. Really appreciate your opinion, CIA lady. I really need to reorganize my sound drops because I'm not fine.
Get this, you had to submit a photo of a negative COVID test to get in 2025. Yeah, no one wants to do that shit again. Yeah.
Well, let me go back a little bit because
I couldn't help him. This year's DSA convention, or as it's commonly known, Comic-Con. Get this, you had to submit a photo of a negative COVID test to get in 2025. Yeah, no one wants to do that shit again. We've had enough of Trump's macho bullshit and also enough of pussy politics. Yeah. Guy couldn't help himself. Yeah.
see, that's fair too, because the reason that the Democrats are losing, I mean, part of the reason is because of stuff like this too, because of the like, what is a woman? I don't know. We should let guys tuck their dicks and play in women's sports. Like that kind of stuff is ridiculous. And again, I don't have any hate in my heart towards trans people. I understand that gender and sexuality is a spectrum. I've known very masculine women and very feminine men, and that's a reality. However, you don't get to have a fetish for, dressing up in women's clothing and still have a dick and then go into women's spaces. And, so that's the kind of stuff when you push stuff to that. And again, I feel like a lot of this stuff is Abigail Spanberger type shit, CIA level shit to push people away from policies that would, actually help people and individual, working class people.
These Democratic socialists at another of their conventions, they were told to make jazz hands instead of clapping, lest some delegates suffer sensory overload. And also, and I'm not joking, they were told not to be wearing, any aggressive scents.
Please don't go into that space with anything that's like an aggressive scent, for instance, right? Because that's going to be difficult for people.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Really? This is who the Democrats are thinking of following? Chuck Schumer ain't perfect, but at least he doesn't crumple into a heap when confronted with Chanel number 5. You may now clap in the traditional way.
Please clap. Please clap. And the audience
Yay!
went. Hey, we need to go more to the right, Democrats.
Yay!
We need to elect more CIA agents, Democrats. So that's Bill Maher, and that is the sad state of the Democrats. Good luck with that. You won't catch me blindly voting for Democrats. Someone like Mamdani, I probably would have voted for because he basically gave a middle finger to the establishment. And that is what the new battle is. As you can see with these kind of alliances being made, you have, Anna Kasparian, Tucker Carlson, crossing MTG on The View, the cult membership thing is over. The red and blue cult thing is over. Now the battle is clear. It's the status quo, defenders of the status quo versus the post-partisan era that we're in now. And just another quick example of what it means to be out of touch in the modern era. I caught this and I wanted to share it with you. South Park has been just on the decline lately. It's pretty terrible. And what they're doing now is every show is about Trump. It's not even about like the kids anymore. It's just like every show is just a big political joke. And like the last one they had, this episode that I'm going to show you this clip from, the whole thing was like these dumb poop jokes with Pam Bondi had poop on her nose all the time because she's brown nosing. And, the one they did with Charlie Kirk, he was the master debater. So the South Park has really like lost its edge. They're just using these like 5th grade level intellect jokes and going full like partisan Democrat bullshit. The nuance of this era is lost on them. And the proof of that is in one little kind of like sidebar they had on this show. So the statement they were making, I think, was a valid one about how the MAGA movement touts Christianity. But then when you look under the hood and you actually see who these people are, they're the least Christian people you could be. The whole episode has like a PC principle, like fighting Jesus and stuff and trying to get Jesus to go on a date. And there's this scene where they have this like really dumb right-wing lady who likes podcasts. And this is the thing that made me realize, okay, Matt and Trey are fucking just like Bill Maher now, insulated, products of propaganda who, yeah, listen, I mean, there's a lot to make fun of about Trump. I'm not going to lie. Like he's a lame duck president at this point. He's not delivered on most of the things that he said he's doing the opposite. We're going to get into that more in just a minute. But this clip is very telling because it shows you where the South Park guys are at, and they are, just watch.
I know what's up. I listen to podcasts. You want to know who I think the Antichrist is? Greta Thunberg, with her stupid haircut and her dumb bangs. Someone should yank out whatever's up her ass.
I can't. I just can't.
So the thing that caught my attention here is I listen to podcasts. They're making fun of, the new media, which has kind of ruined Hollywood and kind of basically taken over because they're pretending that it's just this like dumb right-wing thing to listen to podcasts. Meanwhile, podcasts are winning, because of what we've been speaking about all day today, authenticity. People on podcasts like Joe Rogan and Anna Kasparian will admit when they're wrong. You don't see that on CNN or with the New York Times or all these propaganda outlets that South Park probably gets their scripts from these days. So I thought that was an interesting sidebar to take on South Park and just how completely out of touch they are with everything at this moment in time. They're clearly brunch libs, the South Park guys. Good luck with that, boys. I don't think that's going to fare well in the coming year. And also, the show is it's like, okay, really, guys? Do we have to do another entire episode about Trump and his Satan baby? And it's fucking stupid. Also, it's a retread to the Satan plot line and the fucking, it's just stupid. And it's really a low point for South Park. I still love South Park. I still think that there's some good commentary in their show. Like I said, they make a good commentary about how the new MAGA people that are claiming the mantle of Christianity are completely fake and not actually real Christians by any stretch. They've just kind of co-opted that part of the Republican Party. So that's a valid point. But the rest of it is just like rehashed poop 5th grade master debater, like just the dumbest possible jokes that, I could have written in grade school. So we are going to move on to what I would consider probably the banner story of today's broadcast. And that is H1B visas. Now, I come from the tech industry. I was laid off a couple years ago, probably replaced by a foreign worker who they could pay a lot less money. And so this is an issue that's near and dear to my heart. Now, one of the jobs I've been doing since being laid off is rideshare driving. And where I rideshare drive right now, I pick up a lot of foreign nurses, people that are shipped in from India, the Philippines, Africa, Pakistan, you name it. And it kind of struck me as odd. I'm like driving all these people and I'm like, wow, a lot of these people are like, they don't speak English, but they're like in scrubs and I'm taking them to like the emergency room. And again, it's like, I don't fault anyone for that. I feel like, if they're good at the job, they should be able to have the job, but also there's a sinister aspect to this. And the idea that if you have some questions about it, or you might be against it, that you're some kind of racist, anti collectivist or something, is just a way to shut you up about it. And I'm going to start here. This is a great example of defenders of the status quo versus the new post-partisan era. So we're going to start here with a tweet from Warren Gunnels, very famous leftist thinker. So this is how the Trump administration begins. The 3 billionaires who got front row seat at Trump's inauguration, Musk, Zuckerberg, and Bezos, worth $950 billion, are laying off 74,000 U.S. workers, hiring 27,000 H-1B guest workers, and building an army of robots to displace millions of jobs. Trump cares more about them than you. I would not argue with that. That is definitely the truth. And so I want to show you this video of Donald Trump talking about H1B visas in a recent interview. And you may have seen this, but for those of you that haven't, it's brief.
Will not be a big priority for your administration, because if you want to raise wages for American workers, you can't flood the country with tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of foreign workers.
You also do have to bring in talent. When
we have plenty of talented people here.
No, you don't.
We don't have talented people here.
You don't have certain talents, and people have to learn. You can't take people off an unemployment line and say, I'm going to put you into a factory where we're going to make missiles, or I'm going to put
How did we ever do it before? H1B.
How did we ever do it before? Yeah, you train them. You send them to school. The company does a paid training. Imagine that. Now, interesting to note, my first slide here was Warren Gunnels, renowned leftist, talking about H1B visas. And my next slide here is Mike Cernovich, very well-known far right-wing, Twitter account. I don't know what else he does, but he's hit or miss. Sometimes I think he's nailing it, and other times, this was like a lot of the MAGA people. I think some of them get whipped up into the partisan bullshit, just like the Democrats do. But when they're right, and Cernovich is right here. So Glenn Greenwald had an expert on his show to discuss H1B visas and really go into the weeds. And let's watch this clip, because this is very educational, and it'll give you a better idea as to the dynamics at play here.
Line who haven't worked in 5 years, and they're going to start making missiles. It doesn't work that way.
Now, one of the bizarre things about that is he's, talking about that ICE raid in Georgia that ended up deporting huge numbers of South Korean workers. We're actually here at the invitation of the U.S. government, and he's sort of saying, like, they wanted them out of there, but they made a mistake, even though it's his own, ICE and immigration officials who did that. But I'm more interested in this trajectory of Trump as this America First candidate in 2016 with his view on H-1B visas, now doing this absolute turnaround. I'm not asking you to psychoanalyze Trump. No one can really do that. But what do you think explains the kind of obvious radical difference in his position on this issue?
It's hard to figure out what they're talking about, or what he's talking about here, because as he said in the first clip, he actually campaigned with some of the Disney workers, and that's a very famous case where in Orlando, Disney, which had record profits, forced 250 of its tech workers to train their H-1B replacements. And he knew that the reason was because Disney could get a 40% discount on the H-1B workers, and the Disney the American workers are the ones who had greater skills. They're the ones who were training the H-1B workers. So his claim that we're bringing in these foreign workers, in this case from South Korea, because Americans aren't capable, it's just the opposite of what he experienced with Disney, right? Where the American workers had the skills and were training the H-1B replacements. Now, in terms of what his administration has done, if you read, he issued an executive proclamation back in September on the H-1B program, raising the fee to $100,000 and some other things. But if you read the preamble to that proclamation, he diagnoses, his administration diagnoses the problems, which is that the H-1B program is used for cheaper labor. It's not used for specialized workers. So they're kind of all over the map with this. Now, whether he's really changed.
So that's interesting. And we covered this a couple weeks ago. Like I said, I thought it was actually a really smart way to fix the program. They made the workers cost $100K to bring them over. So in the case like that, you're going to eliminate that you're going to add overhead to it that makes the 40% dip that you pay the worker, irrelevant. So you in a case like that, if you have to pay $100K for all these H-1Bs, you're only going to do it when it's a superstar surgeon or someone that, is really, really talented.
This position or not, I don't know. What really matters is what the government does with policy. Do they fix this program so that corporations can't exploit the program and bring in guest workers, not because they have specialized skills, but because they're 40% cheaper? You can fix that. And whether it was Trump or Biden or Obama, they all should have fixed this. That was the whole point of the program. And nobody in any power is willing to do that. And the politics of this is strange because, there's a lot of Democrats, and a lot of Democrats should be supporting this, should be pro-worker. This is an anti-worker program that you've got with the H-1B program. So I don't know if Trump himself is misinformed, but his administration is actually taking good action so far, at least baby steps towards trying to fix the program.
One of the arguments that is often made for why H-1B visas are necessary is that, and again, this is presuming this conceit, this fiction that we don't have enough trained workers here, is that, oh, don't worry, they're just coming here, and when they get here, we're going to pay them, they're going to stay temporarily, and what they're going to do is they're going to train American workers, so that to the extent we don't have American workers who are sufficiently skilled in these jobs, these people who are skilled, who are going to allow to come here temporarily to work, a major part of their job is going to be to train these American workers so that they are then ready to fill these jobs and then they go back home. Is there any validity to that claim for why H-1B visas actually benefit American workers?
There's zero validity to that. Almost no H-1B workers are brought in to train U.S. workers. H-1B workers, some H-1B workers are very highly skilled, super skilled, but the typical H-1B worker has really ordinary skills, and they're being brought in because they're cheaper, not because they're bringing in special skills that aren't available from the American labor supply. And we know this because about 50% of the program is used specifically for wage arbitrage, specifically by companies to undercut the workforce. So they're taking advantage of really bad worker protections, bad government rules, and it's super profitable because I can bring in an H-1B worker cheaper, undercut the American worker, and make a huge profit doing it. That's great for those corporations that are buying that cheaper labor, that foreign worker, but it's not because they're bringing in skills. It's not because the H-1B worker, the foreign worker, is training the American worker. It's just the opposite, that usually the American worker is training the H-1B worker. So that's a complete fiction.
Yeah, there's
a complete fiction. So as you've probably seen, Marjorie Taylor Greene has drawn the ire of the status quo. Let's not say the Republican Party, because there's a lot of Republicans and Republican talkers, Candace Owens and, Dave Smith, and I don't even know if Dave Smith would be technically Republican, but, Tucker Carlson and Thomas Massey and a lot of these America First people are on her side. But I want to show you, again, going back to the post-partisan era thing, what her solution to this is, and it's a good one. Listen to what she has to say here.
Americans. I'm introducing a bill to completely eliminate the H-1B visa program, which has been riddled with fraud and abuse and has been displacing American workers for decades. There will only be one exemption in my bill, and it will allow for a $10,000 per year cap on visas issued to medical professionals like doctors and nurses who provide life-saving care to Americans. However, even this $10,000 per year cap will be phased out over 10 years to allow us time to build our own pipeline of American doctors and physicians. My bill will also restore the original intent of the visa, for it to be temporary. These visas were intended to fulfill a specialty occupational need at a given time. People should not be allowed to come and live here forever. We thank them for their expertise, but we also wish them well so they may return to their home country. My bill will take away the pathway to citizenship, forcing visa holders to return home when their visa expires. In order to build our pipeline of American doctors and medical professionals, my bill will also prohibit Medicare-funded residency programs from admitting non-citizen medical students into their programs. Just last year alone, there were over 9,000 doctors in the U.S. who graduated from medical school but were left without a residency placement. Meanwhile, in 2023 alone, there were over 5,000 foreign-born doctors who received residency spots. This is entirely unfair, and it's America last.
That is pretty wild. So this is not just a blue-collar problem anymore. Now with the tech industry owning the government, they're going to fight just as hard as, big agriculture and these factories would to keep, cheap immigrant labor on the books, because it's a 40% discount. They can pay these people almost half as much as they can pay an American-born citizen. And it's got to stop. It's not racism. It's not, anti-globalism or whatever. It's common sense. We should take care of us first. Why have we never done that? And it's the reason is obvious, but let me let her finish.
My bill will help mitigate the shortage of doctors and nurses in our country, the shortage that we face, while at the same time serve as an off-ramp from our reliance on foreign workers by allowing us time to fill our residency programs with American doctors. Now, this will completely end the H-1B visa program in all other sectors in the job force and in the workforce. This is America first. It's time to put American citizens first instead of foreigners first. And this has gone on, and this has been an abuse for far too long. Americans deserve a future, they deserve a chance, and I believe Americans are the most talented people in the world, the most creative, and I want them to have their American dream. Thank you.
Do you remember during the election cycle when Vivek got called out for this because he was arguing on behalf of the H-1B visas, and MAGA flipped out on him over that? So I want to show you one last clip here. This is Trump. And, you know, you saw it at the top of that tweet from Marjorie. She said, maybe it's my H-1B visa that has him so mad. But here's Trump recently talking about MTG.
That's a great, big, beautiful bill, which is the biggest tax cuts in the history of our country. So when somebody like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's now catering to the other side, I don't know what, you know, I guess she's, you know, got some kind of an act going, but I'm surprised at her. But when somebody like Marjorie goes over and starts making statements like that, it shows she doesn't know. I passed a great big...
Sounds like she actually does know, Mr. Trump. So this is a meme from a right-wing account. Trump 2016, I'm deporting every illegal and saving America. Trump 2025, do you want a 50-year mortgage? How about some Chinese students? And that's where we're at, folks. That is the state of American politics. And as crazy as things are, I'm optimistic. And on the other side of this, you know, so this is the MAGA part of the Republican Party right now. They're like, fuck you, Trump. Like, you're not doing what you told us you were going to do, and we're not going to vote for you. We're not going to listen to you if you're going to do this, if you're going to sell us out. The other half of the Republican Party has this energy. And just to go back, a little throwback for you to Tucker Carlson again. This is Britney Spears in 2003.
I'm still the same person that I've always been. So
listen to what she
You're
says.
going to be on the National Mall soon performing for Pepsi and the NFL and also to support our troops. A lot of entertainers have come out against the war in Iraq. Have you?
honestly, I think we should just trust our president in every decision that he makes, and we should just support that, you know, and be faithful in what happens.
Do you trust this president?
Yes, I do.
Excellent.
That's the establishment part of the Republican Party right now. Do you trust this president? Yes, I do.
Trust our president in every decision that he makes, and we should just support that, you know, and be faithful in what happens.
Do you trust this president?
Yes, I do.
That's Ted Cruz speaking. So H1B visa issue is a big one. It affects a lot of people in both blue collar circles and even some white collar circles. And you know, obviously with things like doctors and, you know, technical workers that could be trained, these big corporate interests are going to fight like hell to keep this system broken so that they can continue to take advantage of it because it is profitable for them. And despite the calls of racism and all the dumb shit you're going to hear, Marjorie Taylor Greene is right. You know, Warren Gunnels is right. And there's a post-partisan consensus on this issue that is going to be pretty tough to stop. So moving on, here's a photo of all the bad people in politics right now together. It's interesting to watch people like Dinesh D'Souza here lump Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes, who they, out of one side of their mouth, call intense racists, with Mamdani, Candace Owens, and Ilhan Omar. And I think that's her brother, because they, I guess they had some weird relationship. And so they like the Republicans love to low-key racists throw stones at this kind of thing. But He's like, America first is Muslim terrorists. That's how broken these people's brains are. This is the level of stupid they are willing to go. Dinesh tweeted this out, and then his entire audience went, "Yay! Yay!" So, what I'm going to show you next here is a CNBC clip of people losing their minds over Mamdani winning in New York. Take a look at this.
Like, how did Al Sharp didn't get to be leader of Black America or whatever?
Sorry, that's the wrong clip. Here it is.
Looking for a therapist after yesterday's election. And more importantly, we're looking for therapy when they heard that Lena Khan was joining the transition team.
Which just goes to show you, looking back at the Biden administration. I mean, she had a very important job, and we had her on all the time and hung on.
I think we should have her back and talk about
we
what's
will have her back, but let's just know. Okay, so as long as we know, but I mean, she is a
sure. No, but that's what I'm
she
saying.
was running a very important.
Yes,
she is what?
Well, no, I wonder what it portends for business in New York. It was funny.
It's great for business. It's awesome.
A number of business leaders in New York reached out to me yesterday. I was traveling back from London, and it wasn't even the election result itself. It was when this Lena Khan announcement was made.
Right.
It was like they were sort of like frozen in place and talked.
Whether you're a blue-collar MAGA person or a blue-collar Democrat, quote-unquote socialist, this is good news. This is the kind of reaction that should happen. The corporate world is freaking out because there might actually be some accountability. And forever, they have just controlled the reins of power and been able to do whatever they want. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not under the illusion that Mamdani is going to be. We'll see what happens. But, you know, the people like this reacting to Lena Khan as an appointee to his administration is a good sign. All the worst people are freaking out. So just to keep going down this post-partisan trail here, as I showed you, these are the worst people in the world. And here is a clip of Tucker, which I've played before, but we're going to play it again, of Tucker and Marjorie Taylor Greene talking about Mamdani's win. And you'll notice they're not saying like, yay, communism, but they do point to something, the reason he actually won.
Desperate people tend to go to crappy leaders, I think. And I just can't get over what happened in our biggest city this week, the very same week that everybody in D.C. is focused thousands of miles away on the greatest threat we face, Iran's nuclear program. I don't want Iran to have the bomb. I'm not pro-Iran, obviously.
We're not pro-Iran.
Yeah.
Like, why do we have to say it?
No,
But
right.
we do.
It's
Yeah,
dumb.
there's the
But at
disclaimer.
the same time that everybody was looking to Iran, our largest city had a Democratic primary, effectively the mayor's race, and like 32-year-old socialist who wants government-run grocery stores gets elected. He's going to likely run our biggest city.
Yeah.
In the country.
Right. New York.
And it's like, why did that happen? Is it because people are so like desperate for government-run grocery stores or love socialism or love like foreign-born midwits running their cities? Probably not. That guy was the only person in the New York City mayor's debate to say he wanted to focus on New York City. All the candidates were asked, if you could visit a foreign country, what would it be? And they all, of course, all had an answer. I think most said Israel. Great. And he said, I wouldn't go anywhere. I'd stay in New York. And like, if I want to meet Jewish constituents, I go to their synagogues, their homes or whatever, but I'd be here in New York because that's what I'm doing. I'm running New York. That's my job.
Well, he gave the right answer.
He gave the right answer. He gave the right answer, at least. And he's talking. I totally oppose his program.
Absolutely.
To be clear. I don't think it works, but he's talking about economics.
Yep.
And everyone else is talking about foreign policy.
Yep. And that right there, more than anything, is why he won. Because he didn't say the thing that you have to say to pass the, litmus test for that certain lobby that we know has puppet strings on most of our politicians. So I want to go deeper on this because the divide in the Republican side and the divide on the Democratic side is very strong. And the divide is status quo versus post-partisan America. And we saw it with, Bill Maher talking about Abigail Spanberger. Yay, we need to listen to Abigail Spanberger, CIA agent who basically won in, when she get elected in Virginia, the home of the CIA. Maybe it was, I'm pretty sure that's where she's at. Anyway, of course she's going to win. She fucking works for the CIA. All her co-workers live in her district, I'm sure. But on the Republican side, the divide is between the Tucker Carlsons and the Marjorie Taylor Greene wing of the party, the Matt Gaetz, the more kind of America First libertarian side, and the Ben Shapiro, Mark Levin status quo side. And so watch this. This is Tucker talking about Ben Shapiro. And if you haven't seen this, you might have seen this, but this is the divide in the Republican Party, right? And really the Democrat Party as well. They don't have the balls to say it out loud like Ben Shapiro does here, but listen to this. This is astonishing.
An awful lot of people in Washington and a lot of people in Ben Shapiro's world. And that worldview is the people of this country don't really matter. They can be replaced. And by the way, if you complain about the fact they're being replaced, which they are at high speed, it's measurable, then you're a Nazi and you must shut up and be punished. But those people don't really matter. They should do what they're told. And ultimately, they should just serve the people who are profiting from all of this. Does he really think that? Well, here are a couple of clips that you can watch carefully and answer the question for yourself. Here's Ben Shapiro.
We have trained an entire generation of people to believe that if their lives are not what they want them to be, it's the fault of systems, as opposed to decisions that are in their own control. And politicians absolutely have a stake in selling that. A lot of people in our industry have a stake in selling that. It makes people feel good about themselves and bad about the world. And the reality is, if you want a better life, you should feel better about the world and worse about yourself. If you're a young person and you can't afford to live here, then maybe you should not live here. I mean, that is a real thing. I know that we've now grown up in a society that says that you deserve to live where you grew up. But the reality is that the history of America is almost literally the opposite of that.
It's hard to know where to start with that clip. I think that's been on the internet and people are...
Yeah, everyone's like, yeah, Ben, I'm totally on board with that. Yeah. We don't deserve to live in our own country.
Or experiencing gut level revulsion when they see it, and they really should. And there's so many ways to approach it. There's so many things wrong with those statements. So childish, those statements. So lacking an understanding of people or any connection really to the country at all. But really what you see underneath all of that is contempt for the people who live here. You have no right to live in the town where you were born just because your parents are buried there. Your ancestors built the town. Who do you think you are? Imagine feeling that way about someone in your own country. Yeah. Imagine having that level of contempt for a fellow American. You don't even know anything about the person. It's young people. They're not entitled to live where they want. They'll live where BlackRock tells them they can live. It's like, whoa. If you had a thought like that, I've had some ugly thoughts. I just admitted having some ugly thoughts. Boy, I would try and push it back and not express it. Ben says it without any embarrassment because he means it. That's exactly right, because he means it.
And here's another one. Another great Ben Shapiro quotable here.
It makes basically the same point that is in some ways even more disgusting, maybe less well known. Here's Ben Shapiro telling you that if you ever want to retire, stop working to pay off your 50 freaking year mortgage. You own the house, really, for 50 years. Okay, no, I'm renting it. I'll be 90 by the time I pay it off, which of course I won't because I got all kinds of other loans too. So if you complain about that, if you had these dreams of like working really hard and retiring, how dare you? How dare you? Here's Ben Shapiro.
No one in the United States should be retiring at 65 years old. Frankly, I think retirement itself is a stupid idea unless you have some sort of health problem. It's totally insane that you believe that you should be able to work from the time that you are essentially 20 to the time that you are 65, which is a 45-year period, pay in, and then you'll receive Social Security benefits sufficient to support you and your family, you and your wife or whatever, for like another 20 years. That's crazy talk.
Yeah, it's crazy talk. Like, how dare you? How dare you? Now, the conventional response to this, I've heard people say it, is, well, Ben Shapiro can say that because he's a podcaster. He's not climbing ladders for a living. And if you climb ladders for a living, you know, or do any kind of physical labor, even light physical labor, your body breaks down. It's just a fact. And if you're around people who've done it, you know, by the time they get to 50, they're limping and they're in pain. That's why they're, you know, you go to these little towns around the country and most businesses are gone. There are no furniture stores or no toy stores. Like, they're all gone. They're all at Walmart. They're a husk. But what you do find next to the, you know, the drug rehab places are chiropractors, or a lot of chiropractors throughout the country. It's because poorer people, working class people, blue collar people are aching. They have trouble walking. Their backs hurt.
So I just want to throw this in as a sidebar. This is a clip of the Ben Shapiro WAP remix that I recently did. Enjoy.
In this house. There's some whores in this house. There's some whores in this house. Hold up. I said certified freak. 7 days of the week. Wet ass P-word. Make that pull-out game weak. Yeah, you effin' with some wet ass P-word. Bring a bucket and a mop for this wet ass P-word. Give me everything you got for this wet ass P-word. Beat it up, N-word. Catch a charge. Extra large and extra hard. Put this P-word right in your face. Swipe your nose like a credit card. Hop on top if I want to ride. I do a Kegel while it's inside. Spit in my mouth, look in my eyes. This P-word is wet, come take a dive. And it gets significantly more vulgar. Like, a lot more vulgar. Talk your S-word, bite your lip, ask for a call while you hide that D-word. This is, guys, this is what feminists fought for. You really ain't never gonna F him for a thing. He already made his mind up before he came. Now get your boots and your coat for this wet-ass P-word. Pay my tuition just to kiss me on this wet-ass P-word. Right, so P-word is female genitalia. This is what the feminist movement was all about. It's not, it's not really about, women being treated as independent, full, rounded human beings. It's about wet-ass P-word. And if you say anything differently, it's because you're a misogynist, you see.
Oh, Ben. So the modern non-MAGA side of the Republican Party, just to kind of sum up who they are, this is a great tweet. Tucker Carlson is a no-go for Fox News, even with the highest ratings of anyone. Former Al-Qaeda in studio. Incredible to see a former Al-Qaeda commander in studio on Fox News being asked about 9/11, barely condemning it. The interviewer quickly moving on to the Abraham Accords. So that's how much these people despise you and think of you, how little they think of you, that they'll try to convince you that Tucker Carlson and Marjorie Taylor Greene are these demons, but they'll have a former Al-Qaeda leader on Fox News. And last but not least here, we have mine and your friend, proud socialist Ryan Knight down here. He says, the CIA fights against socialism abroad to protect U.S. business interests and ensure corporations can profit from cheap labor and stolen resources. H1B visas is a good example. The FBI fights against socialism at home to ensure Americans never wake up and liberate themselves from this bullshit and the planet from this. And they have this meme with the CIA stomping the entire planet, reaching for alternative economic systems. And listen, I'm not one of those people who necessarily thinks that an alternative economic system is necessary. Just enforcing common sense in the one we have would be a good start. You know what I mean? Because what's funny about the socialism thing is there is socialism for companies like Pfizer who use American taxpayer money to fund research on drugs and then keep the profits to themselves. No one ever talks about that kind of socialism. And to Bill Maher's credit, in the earlier segment, he did include the military-industrial complex as part of socialism. So it's an interesting, kind of reach he has to make to square that with, Mamdani's evil and all these democratic socialists are evil. Now, again, I agree with Bill and a lot of the nuance of like the DSA and their like COVID shit, their COVID nonsense, and the like, oh, if you wear too much perfume, it might hurt someone's feelings. That's ridiculous, and that needs to go. And that's probably a CIA thing as well. But we're gonna move on to our last two segments of the day. The first one is someone I've grown to love over the last year or so, Candace Owens. She has been on a goddamn tear with this Charlie Kirk investigation, and her show has just been fire. And in the most recent one, so I want to start by saying, I think I take a more particular interest in the stories that's unraveling here than a lot of people, because I'm so it involves places that I've been most of my life, like Utah. I attended UVU briefly. And then she goes into this whole thing about Thousand Oaks, California, also a place I used to live, and these people that are around it. But more than anything, she makes this tie between Mormonism and a certain lobby in the Middle East. And so I want to play this for you along with another clip and just kind of show you some of the rabbit hole that Candace has been going down lately, because it's been great. And you should obviously tune into her show and check out a lot of the stuff that she's been saying. But here's the first piece of this for you. Listen.
Minds. This was their focus, was how do we control like mass experimentation? How do we brainwash people? And they were experimenting on hippies when they did this. And Courtney, who's writing a book on this, so I'm not exposing anything, told me that she was given LSD at this age. This is how she grew up. She grew up.
So she's talking about Courtney Love. I guess she's been kind of corresponding a little bit with Courtney Love. And Courtney Love, I mean, this is pretty well known. She's talked about it multiple times, how she was dosed with acid like when she was really little and her dad was kind of fucked up, and probably explains a lot of the, you know, inconsistencies in her personality. But
up in this area. And she told me, I did not kill Kurt Cobain. That was part of a psychological operation to make the masses look away from what the CIA was guilty of. And she then told me through a lot of messages that at the core of all of this is ownership. You know, goodbye to your idea of a meritocracy, that you can climb the ladder and become a billionaire yourself. Actually, the best way to understand it is that when companies or individuals get too big and become too powerful, they send their agents to control them, to make sure that they are able to control their messaging. And if they cannot control those individuals, they will stage some sort of a hostile takeover of that brand or of that company or of that particular person. And there's a number of ways that that can be accomplished. First and foremost, the psychosis. Oh, she's having a mental breakdown. She needs a break. She's really tired. Britney's been put on a Psych 5150 hold. Kanye, he said he was just reading a Bible, and Harley Pasternak, and we got into his backstory, and MK Ultra suddenly puts him in a hospital on a Psych 5150 hold, and somehow his wife, I guess, was cool with that at the time, being Kim Kardashian. Also, of course, Wacko Jacko. The media gets involved in this, blaring out to the public, don't look at what's happening behind the scenes, because this person's just absolutely crazy. They're doing this to me right now. Like, obviously, you guys see this every single day. She's gone off the deep end. Thank you. That's where I'd like to be. I don't want to be in the shallow end, my friends. Yeah, let's get deep on these topics. Another way that they accomplish this is via lawfare. They will bankrupt you, okay? This is why what's happening to Elijah Schaffer, this is relevant. This is one of their strategies. When they want you to shut up, they will effectively bankrupt you. Your consequence.
So what's interesting about what she's describing here to me is this is all stuff that was done to Donald Trump. And it just, I've said this before, but they would have done all this stuff to Bernie Sanders too. They started to do it to him when he started winning. Oh, suddenly Nazi flags pop up at his rallies. Suddenly he's a misogynist and a racist and all this stuff.
Will be that you have no more money. And Michael Jackson, despite the fact that he was beating Sony, he was owning his own catalog and almost owned the Beatles catalog. And that's when they swept in and they took down Michael Jackson. He died broke, right? And the people who he was fighting owned his catalog. Actually, in the news today, this is totally a God thing, I saw Paris Jackson was in the news today. She's lost in court and she's still fighting over her father's legacy. It's insane. The very people he hated, right, now own his catalog, and he was beating them. And they lied to us about the pedophilia. I did a whole episode on that. You should look it up. Candace owns Michael Jackson. It's a shocking, true story of what they did and how we all believed it.
I've talked about this several times, but I'm team Michael. I don't believe Michael was guilty. I mean, he was acquitted in a court of law. And then these guys who wanted to sue, who sued the Jackson estate and were trying to get money, made that documentary, the HBO documentary, which is complete nonsense. And, you know, just not to go too far down this rabbit hole, but I knew it was bullshit when I saw Macaulay Culkin talking about, like, Macaulay Culkin and Corey Feldman both have spent plenty of time with Michael Jackson and swore up and down he never did anything sexual or tried to molest them or anything. And they are independently wealthy. Imagine that.
And then, of course, brings us the next way that they accomplish what they want, the media, a reputational assassination, right? The Me Too movement. That's what I was getting at. It was such an easy way to hostile take over big companies, because even if these people survive and prove they didn't do anything wrong to these women who may be paid to come up and say, he did this or he did that, you effectively have to sell your company because you just can't, you're so tarred and feathered reputationally that nobody wants to work with you anymore, right? Who buys these companies? It doesn't matter, like I said, but at the end of the day, whether or not the allegations are true, it's how much damage they can do to you as a person. And of course, the last way that they can hostily take over your company is with an untimely death. Kurt Cobain, Prince, Michael Jackson, Charlie Kirk. And I should also mention Bob Breyer Talk about a, I don't know, timely.
This is crazy. If you're a fan of rock music like I am, My Chemical Romance has been one of my favorite bands. And I remembered when this guy died, I thought it was kind of weird. But listen to this.
Or untimely death. I remember My Chemical Romance. You guys remember My Chemical Romance? The drummer, well, he had an overdose at the right time, right? Kind of a crazy story. The drummer posts this onto Twitter. This was October of last year. This is Bob Breyer. He writes, easy answer for that. Don't forget that Lou Taylor was my business manager for 18 years. We just separated in September because the Kardashians are the slimiest pile of garbage on the planet. They make a shitload of money, way more than I do, kind of like prostitutes. Anyways, I cannot be associated with them. Maybe Kendall, because she's kind of real and has an SF90 that I could drive. They actually have blood on their hands, and I know everything. Well, we're never going to know what he knows because he then died in a very mysterious circumstance. This is People Magazine. My Chemical Romance rocker Bob Breyer's cause of death ruled undetermined. Nitrous oxide found near his body. So he died from laughing gas. It's undetermined. And if you read that book, Chaos, the medical examiners are always in their pockets, which is really interesting when you have these. And again, if you read Hollywood Babylon, it gets into all of these true stories of just perfectly timed deaths, which we're never going to know the answer to what happened. Anyways, going back to what Courtney Love told me, and I'm looking back at these messages and I'm mind blown. She made it very clear, which to me, she intimated to me that this is a mafia. Okay, this is a mafia, and they seek to own everything, every inch of land, every business, every organization, and you can trip onto their radar by making too much money. Like as soon as you, there's like layers of this, and first they're going to try to offer you a job and try to control you, blah, blah. And then if they can't control you, they will try to destroy you. But their goal is to just successfully infiltrate, right? Curiously, and I'm going to read this to you or else you won't believe me. She kept insisting to me through many messages that I needed to look into the quote unquote Mormon mafia, which she said sits above Hollywood and even sits above many Zionist Jews. Now, I want to be very clear because this can be offensive to people. Every faith has been infiltrated. Okay, we know that things are corruptible. This is not an attack on and saying every person in the Mormon church is involved, every person, the Catholic, no, but we know that at the top, things get corrupted. It's just a fact. And if you are actually a person that cares about your soul and you want to get into heaven, your job is not to defend corruption, whether it's happening in your church, in your backyard, in your own home. Your job is to try to root it out. And I'm sharing this text message because it's crazy that at the time.
So to kind of just give you the brief overview, I thought it was interesting about the My Chemical Romance drummer, but it ties into the larger narrative about this woman who's a business manager for Britney Spears and a lot of these, and Bieber and these stars who kind of like went a little crazy. And there's this movie called I Care a Lot about this woman who does civil asset forfeiture. And it's kind of the same dynamic here. This woman moves in and kind of like takes over these celebrities' fortunes. And she's, of course, related to the LDS Church. And the rabbit hole that Candace has been going down is exposing a lot of these connections in the faith world with military and a bunch of other things. But this led me to some interesting information that I was unaware of about the Mormons as someone who grew up in Utah. And I was never, a like card carrying Mormon. I have family who is, but I was never, my mom's evangelical. So I was kind of caught in the between, and I was always like, you're all crazy. But I want you to see this because this came up on my radar after Candace's recent broadcast, and I just thought it was worth sharing.
And shortly after, was charged with treason and locked up in an Illinois jail.
So this is Joseph Smith, the founder of the LDS Church,
where he was murdered and fell from the window with the Book of Mormon in hand, as the story goes. Joseph Smith was now a martyr, and his prophecy was proven to be true when the Mormons were forced to leave Illinois in 1846. They then began their exodus to the Utah Territory, where they massacred the indigenous population and found their New Jerusalem. The U.S. government allowed the Mormons the freedom to colonize the West and expand their manifest destiny. But after the dirty work was done, polygamy was federally outlawed, and the once anti-American Mormons became hyper-patriotic and made the
So the government kind of used the Mormons, the Mormon settlers to help take over the Western territories. I mean, that's just a fact. That's part of written history. So, and then when Utah wanted to become a state, they were like, the polygamy thing's kind of a non-starter. And so Mormons ditched polygamy. Their prophet had a vision that polygamy was bad, and they changed.
All-American nuclear family, their new public image. The entire Mormon religion is based on the belief that the world will soon end and that a Jewish state must be created in Palestine. The LDS Church, who identify as descendants of ancient Israel, was the only religious organization to officially support Israel's creation in 1948. In 1989, Mormons founded a university in East Jerusalem. The LDS Church is worth billions today. They are the main contender for the most Zionist organization of America. And Charlie Kirk said that half of his team were Mormons.
So there you go. Some interesting threads being pulled here by Candace. And that's a space that you should keep watching her show. I mean, I can't miss it. She's become one of my favorite shows. It makes sense why she's the #1 podcast in the world, because she's actually doing some really interesting journalism and investigative journalism. So our last story of the day also involves investigative journalism. And I saved it for last because I'm still unsure about how much we're allowed to talk about here. For example, if you search this woman's name in Google, you get some interesting results. But this is the woman who is accused of allegedly laying pipe bombs at the DNC and RNC during the January 6th riots. And I say riots because, a lot of people say, oh, insurrections, whatever. It was a riot that was kind of co-opted, as we'll clearly see here. But just to close out with this, and I put this at the end just in case, but this is where we're at with this. And if you haven't seen this yet, I'm just going to throw up Jimmy Dore here because he did a pretty good breakdown of this.
Eve of January 6th. I wonder why. Oh, because they got caught. So I guess here's the new.
You're watching previously unreleased video of the mysterious person who planted pipe bombs outside the offices of the Democratic and Republican National Committees in Washington, D.C. a day before the January 6th riot at the U.S. Capitol. The FBI is releasing the footage and more information in hopes of generating new tips for the pipe bomb investigation. Authorities previously offered a reward of up to $500,000 for information leading to the suspect's arrest and conviction. Investigators estimate the unidentified suspect to be about 5 feet 7 inches tall. The most distinctive part of the suspect's outfit are a pair of black and gray Nike Air Max Speed Turf shoes with a yellow logo. The FBI says fewer than 25,000 pairs of the same shoe were sold between August 2018 and January 2021. The pipe bombs were discovered about 17 hours after they were planted. Fortunately, nobody was hurt before the bombs were rendered safe, but the FBI says both devices could have been lethal.
So the guy who discovered all this, Armitage, said he believes the device planted next to the bench in some bushes at the DNC building at 7:54 p.m. on January 5th was retrieved at 4:40 a.m. on January 6th and replaced shortly before or nearly simultaneously to the discovery of the bomb at 1:05 p.m. The device appears to have been broken by the bomb suspect outside the Congressional Black Office Institute on January 5th. Much public discussion in the case dealt with the rare Nike Air Max Speed Turf sneakers the suspect wore and whether the person was familiar with the area around DNC building and the Capitol Club. Gait analysis software can get accurate results even if the subject is walking at a faster than normal pace. Speed. It can also recognize gait on video shot from a long distance.
So gait as in, just to clarify here, gait as in GAIT means your stride, like how you walk. I can tell out of the corner of my eye sometimes by how guys walk if they're gay or not. I'm dead serious because of their gait. You can tell. And so this makes a lot of sense to me that they used gait analysis software to find this pipe bomber, and lo and behold, it's a Fed.
Does not require the kind of video resolution needed for facial recognition. The bombing suspect's head was covered by a hoodie and a COVID-19 face mask. The jerky motion seen on video released by the FBI would normally make gait analysis more difficult. Here's Thomas. So Steve Baker says this might just be the biggest scandal and conspiracy in American history. Many heroes were involved in bringing this to light. Some we can name in the coming days, some who want no recognition, and there's much more to this yet to be told. Thomas Massey retweets it and says, America is waking up today to learn that the Capitol Police turned CIA orchestrated the pipe bombs on January 6th, and the FBI has covered it up for 4 years. I question the FBI Director Wray, ATF Director Dettelbach, and FBI Assistant Director D'Antuono under oath, and they all played dumb. Of course they did. I assure you that this video of unidentifiable pipe bomber throwing a hand signal to the D.C. Police Department as they drive by is completely normal and shouldn't be looked into at all. So let's watch. So you're going to see, hang on. So you're going to see, here she comes. There comes the DC cop planting the bomb. She's going to throw a hand signal to the cops. Watch her hand. There you go. Hand goes up, throws a signal.
I'm on my way.
Throws a signal. And now you know the rest of the story. And now you know how easy it is to dupe most of the country. That this is called the PSYOP, and it's been perpetrated on you by your own intelligence community in the United States. Like I told you, when Chuck Schumer revealed to Rachel Maddow that Trump was dumb to criticize the FBI and the CIA, and Rachel Maddow said, why? And he said, well, because they've got 6 ways a Sunday to get back at you. So what that means is that the FBI and the CIA doesn't work for the president, and that the president should be afraid of the intelligence community. And that was the #1 Democrat in the country at the time. The leader of the Democratic Party said that the president should be afraid of the FBI and the CIA.
Hey, Chuck Schumer.
You go back to your home on Whore Island.
It's been a while since I've asked Keith Olbermann for what he thinks about this. Keith Olbermann, what do you have to say about this?
Now, I'll confess that I have licked Joe Biden's dick all the way through since 1975.
So now we have proof, more proof. I mean, there's plenty of proof that this was a manufactured incident. Sure, I've said this 1,000 times about January 6th. If there are people who are vandalizing or doing illegal stuff, they deserve what they got. They deserve, if they're breaking windows on the Capitol or they took a shit in Nancy Pelosi's office or whatever, they deserve the full extent of the law. They deserve to be prosecuted for that. However, there's a lot more people there that did almost nothing that were swept up in this. And this was clearly used for propaganda to try and hang an insurrectionist label around Donald Trump's base and make it untenable for him to run for president again. And it didn't work. None of the stuff they did worked, which made me thankful. Unfortunately, Donald Trump has now been co-opted now that he's in office, it looks like. But this is why he won. And I just want to end this by showing you my pinned tweet, which I've shown several times, but this is how I knew this was a fraud from the beginning. And I clipped this together, but the first clip you're going to see is David Frum debating Steve Bannon. I think it was in 2017, around then, after Trump first got elected, around the midterms of the first Trump presidency. And he said something that's so telling about how Antifa are really just undercover cops. And I, squared that clip up with a clip I've had in my, archive for a long time from a podcaster who was at January 6th filming a guy in a helmet with a Donald Trump sticker on the back of the helmet, breaking a window with a police club in all black. And it's mind blowing that, and this is why, Chuck Schumer and all these people freaked out when Tucker Carlson, if you remember, showed the footage that they wouldn't release of January 6th of the protests, like a lot of the protesters obeying the rules and filing nicely through the velvet ropes and everything. They only showed you the stuff that looked violent. And there was some. Let's not be ridiculous. Like, there was some violence. And again, those people that committed violence deserve to be sentenced or deserve, the punishment. Unfortunately, I think a lot of them were feds, like this lady who dropped the pipe bombs. But watch this. This is
lose on Tuesday. And if they lose badly, it's not going to be because of the left, whatever that means. It's not because of the 50 Antifa black mask guys who roam around the United States breaking windows and committing mayhem, most of whom are probably paid police informers.
So watch this. Now, I'm going to pause it real quick. Look at this guy right here. He's got a Trump sticker on the back of his helmet, and he's breaking a window. He's all black, and you hear the MAGA people, Antifa, Antifa. So now you'll see a guy in a red hat coming up. He sees the guy breaking the window and he's like, hey, that's not okay, man. That's not what we came here for. And so I put the caption, oh my God, it's a MAGA terrorist attacking the police. Because that's exactly what it is. So again, this is the dynamic we've been dealing with. And it's the reason that Trump won. But I'm optimistic because people are coming around, you know, and I really feel like we're at a point or at a breaking point where the left and right cults are dissipating. People can see on the right now that it is them versus the status quo. Even though they got their guy in, he's fallen victim to the same thing that they all fall victim to. And who knows? Bill Hicks has a joke about when Bill Clinton was elected, they took him into a back room and showed him footage of the JFK shot that had never been seen before. And then he went, "Oh, okay. What's my agenda?" You know, there's a lot of side discussion here. You know, Trump was shot at too. I almost wonder if that wasn't staged at this point, based on what I'm seeing with the Charlie Kirk thing. You know, anything's possible. I talked about it at the time it happened. And, you know, a lot of the people in my lefty circles were saying, "Oh yeah, this has got to be staged." At the time I went, yeah, you know, I mean, other people were shot too. There was a firefighter that was killed that died that day. I mean, it's kind of hard to fake something like that if he has a family and stuff that lost him, but anything's possible. And as we've seen, these people will do anything to scare you and propagandize you and whip you into their agenda. So that's it for today. But I have one more clip for you that we're going to close out on. It's just an example of how ridiculous mainstream news propaganda can get. Thank you for joining me. I got love for y'all listening to me rant for a couple hours. And if you haven't yet, like and subscribe. I don't say that enough, but you will see me here religiously on Saturdays. And, you know, if I got something wrong, I always say this, hit me up in the comments, let me know. I would love to hear it. And before we go to that, let's just go to the comments and see if there's anything worth responding to here. Extra Bulla, how you doing, brother? Good to see you, man. Thank you for joining. Truth violates community standards, my boy. What does he have to say? You usually got some good comments here. If socialism is such a failure, then why are the capitalists the thieves and thugs? Yeah. It's Bill Maher's little clip was such a great example of how disconnected these people's thinking is, because he's like, oh, socialism, so bad. It's just terrible. There's nothing worse than socialism. We've seen that it doesn't work. And then he pulls up a list of all these working examples of socialism in the United States. And it's like, look, the military industrial complex is not an intentional one. That's one. And Bill has rightfully called the military industrial complex a jobs program, which is why it's so hard to rein it in, because every district has an operation in it that Congress is getting kickbacks from, their congressman's getting kickbacks from. But I am optimistic again. You know, people are starting to shed the cult mentality. You see it with people like MTG and, you know, Tucker Carlson, and bank on it. Tucker, Jon Stewart, if you guys are out there listening, I want to see a Tucker Carlson, Jon Stewart kiss and make up podcast. I think it's way overdue. And I think that Tucker Carlson would be a boss to invite John on, or vice versa. It's clear that, you know, Jon Stewart, man, it's hard for me to hate the guy. You know, the Daily Show was part of my media diet for such a long time. And I do really feel like, despite him being off or maybe doing things that I don't agree with all the time, Jon Stewart comes from an authentic place. You know, you saw it with the stuff he did for the 9/11 survivors, the guys, you know, the firefighters and stuff in Congress. And so it's way overdue. And I like looking at the place that Tucker's at and the place that John is at right now. I really hope to see that. So get the word out for me if, you know, maybe they're probably not watching my stream, but hey, oh, that reminds me, before we go, speaking of famous people watching my stream, I want to show you something before we go. And this really blew me away. I was really happy to see this. So let me just It's going to take me a second to pull. I should have pulled this up earlier, but give me just 1 second. Okay. So I did a breakdown a couple weeks ago of the Prop 50 thing in California. And I used a clip of Butch Ware, the Green Party candidate, of course, because I thought his argument on it was great. And so let me just show you just the opening clip of that. So check this out. This is Butch Ware talking about
Fred Hampton, who was a great Black Panther intellectual, was killed by police in Chicago. He said, "We don't believe that you fight fire with fire best. We believe that you fight fire with water best."
So I just wanted to show you one of the top comments on this video is Mr. Rudolph Ware himself, who jumped in and said, "Great analysis." And of course, I had to reply. I said, "Appreciate you out there speaking the truth." So props to Butch Ware, man. I'm not a big channel. I've got like a little over 600 subscribers. And I thought that was very cool of him to see me kind of commenting on him and jump in and give his 2 cents. So props to Butch Ware. If you're in California, keep an eye out for him. If I had been in California this last election, I would have voted for him. Unfortunately, I was not in a place where I could vote, and he didn't win. But the Green Party is a breath of fresh air in my book. I might not agree with everything that they say all the time, but I really hope that more of their candidates get a foothold in Congress, before at least over Democrats. I will easily vote for a Green Party candidate over a Democrat any day of the week. So, and Butch had a really valid take on that issue. He basically said, like Fred Hampton said, we're not going to fight fire with fire. We're going to fight fire with water. And so doing the same thing, the Republicans, he basically goes on to say, you don't use fascism to fight fascism. And that's kind of what the Gavin Newsom thing is. And it's really the Prop 50 thing, kind of the analysis I went into is Gavin Newsom's running for president. So he's got to do something. And the whole excuse is Trump is bad. They never tell you why they need to have the right to own the districts or anything like that. But let's go back to you saw Garland Nixon playing the Ain't That America thing? I know. I've seen Russ from Due Distance. Russ follows me on Twitter. And we interact sometimes through Twitter, and I've definitely seen him quote my "Ain't That America" COVID guy thing. I love it. I hope he does. If you're watching, Garland, man, I love you. I subscribe to you too, so it'd be great to have you on the stream sometime, or vice versa if you're into that. But guys, thanks again for checking in on me. I really appreciate it as always. I'm a tiny little channel, but I'm fighting hard to grow every day, and you're going to see me a lot more consistency. I came to this realization that, based on my schedule, I do everything myself, and I don't have time. When I started this, I kind of picked up the Jimmy Dore model, which is do the live stream, cut it up into segments. Do Dissonance does the same thing. A lot of podcasters do. But since I'm a solo operation, I just don't have the time, and I'm not monetized to do this. So what I'm going to start trying to do is just more frequent live streams. You'll see me every Saturday regardless, but you may see me popping up in the week a little bit more frequently in the same way that Dave Smith does. Dig the stream. Hey, thank you, brother. Again, appreciate all you guys. And I'm going to take you out tonight with one of my old favorites, kind of on the vein of this propaganda thing and how stupid the news can get. This is a song I made a couple years ago with a ridiculous news clip from Oklahoma local news about how kids are making digital drugs, like MP3s that they download that like alter their consciousness and stuff. And these newscasters in Oklahoma were just freaking out about it. And so I just turned it into kind of a funny electronic song. And so I hope you enjoy it. I'm going to play that on the way out. And thanks again, guys. Hit me up in the comments. Follow me on Twitter. It's @RogueGrimes. And if we don't see you before, then I'll see you next week.
websites are luring kids with free downloads of so-called digital drugs, which are audio files designed to induce drug-like effects.
Experience these digital drugs are headphones, their computer, and an MP3 player. Demons into a MP3 player. Digital drugs. All kids need to experience these digital drugs are headphones, their computer, and an MP3 player. Like some weird like demons into a iPod or something, and he was just freaking out. He was just freaking out. Demons. He was just freaking out. He was just freaking out. Demons to a iPod or something, and he was just freaking out. All kids need to experience these digital drugs are headphones, their computer, and an MP3 player. Digital demons.
Audio files designed to induce drug-like effects.
Digital demons.
Audio files designed to induce drug-like effects. Drug-like effects.
I heard it was like some weird like demon into a iPod or something, and he was just freaking out. Digital demons.
Kids are going to flock to these sites just to see what it's about, and it can lead them other places.
Someone else is in town, Roger Waters, Pink Floyd. You're obviously Jewish. He's been coming out with a lot of
Israeli.
And Israeli. And he's been coming with a lot of very anti-Israel and what people perceive to be anti-Semitic comments.
I'm not sure that's the same thing.
Right. So what's your position about Roger Waters?
Well, first of all, he's a very talented guy. He's written some of the most wonderful music along with Floyd. Many, many decades, and it's obviously held up, and he's got lots of fans. There is something to be said for keeping your political and other beliefs off the stage. His choice is to use the stage as a platform to further his point of view. There is a difference between a political statement about Israel and about anti-Semitism. By the way, anti-Semitism also involves Arabs. The definition of a Semite includes the Arab world. So I think he's a well-meaning guy. I don't agree with his point of views, of course.
So do you think he's